In today's movie, we will see a girl who has an affair with her teacher. She wanted to complete her literature. She was ready to go to any extent for this. They come very close and are unable to control themselves. What happens after this, we will see further in this video. So let's start this movie. In the beginning of the movie, we see a girl named Cairo. She is 18 years old. Cairo lives in a mansion. She lives here very comfortably. She has no shortage of money, but very few people live around her. Her parents are lawyers who often stay out of town for work. So Cairo spends most of her time alone. She had to walk a long distance to go to school. When Cairo's writing her admission assignment, she talks to Vinny. She says that she has not achieved anything big yet, and neither does she have any such experience. Then Vinny tells her to experience something that will help her learn about the affair between a student and a teacher. Actually, Winnie is telling Cairo that she should have a student-teacher affair so that she can write about it. Then Caro discusses whether Winnie had an affair with Mr. Fillmore. Winnie is a lesbian and is a good friend of Mr. Miller, and he is also the school coach. The next day we see Caro in school where she joined the creative writing class. Here Cairo meets Mr. Miller for the first time. Mr. Miller is of a very calm nature and he was a normal person. But Caro joined this class only for Mr. Miller because she knows that he is a published author and she also considers herself a writer. Caro tells here that she has read a lot of books for this course. Mr. Miller likes Cairo's talks a lot. Here both of them talk a lot to each other. Here Mr. Miller is surprised to know that Cairo's house is Love Hill, which is a mansion built in the middle of the forest. Mr. Miller says that he used to think that in that house there were only ghosts live here. These people were talking here when Cairo's best friend Winnie comes here. After coming here, she invites both of them for breakfast. When Cairo and Winnie go for breakfast, Mr. Miller sees the books kept on Cairo's desk. Mr. Miller is very impressed by seeing Cairo's books. Among these books, there is also one of his own books which Miller had written for his teaching career. Miller feels very good seeing all this. After some time, Mr. Miller comes to his house, and after coming here, he gets intimate with his wife. Here, he talks with his wife about new students. Mr. Miller's wife is an alcoholic, and she is not happy with Mr. Miller's work. Mr. Miller, who is always engrossed in books, his wife does not like these things, so it can be easily understood why Mr. Miller is inclined towards his students. One day, Mr. Miller calls Cairo to him after the class. He discusses a story with Cairo. Mr. Miller wants to tell a part of that story to Cairo. Cairo presents their story even better here. They get so deep into the story that their conversation was happening in such a way as if they were getting intimate with each other. In the middle of their romantic talks, Winnie suddenly comes here, and she takes Cairo home. Cairo goes to the town for a poetry reading, where Miller also had to go. Cairo also wanted Mr. Miller to come here. After some time, Mr. Miller also comes here. They sit close to each other and listen to a poem. Cairo gets very emotional while listening to the poetry. After this, they come out and talk a lot about it. Here they smoke cigarettes and share cigarettes with each other. The intimacy between these two was increasing. After some time, Miller meets Fillmore, who is a coach and teacher in the school and is a very old friend of Miller. These people were talking here when Cairo comes here. Fillmore comes here. Caro makes fun of his selection of books. Now Fillmore leaves from here. Caro sits close to Miller. They again share cigarettes here. They were very close. Miller was going to his class when he gets a message from his wife that she is going somewhere. In the class, Caro tells Miller about her favorite author. She says that she is going to write her story in his style. Mr. Miller is in a hurry to go home, so she says yes and leaves from here. Winnie climbs on Mr. Miller's table and teases Cairo. Fillmore comes to meet his friend Miller. After Fillmore comes here, Winnie also jokes with him. She takes Fillmore's phone and puts it in her clothes, but Caro was not able to find his phone. Here we see Mr. Miller, who plans to go out with his wife, but his plan gets canceled because Mr. Miller's wife had a lot of work. When Mr. Miller was sitting in his house, his wife calls him. Cairo calls him. Here we come to know that Cairo had put his phone in Mr. Miller's bag so that he could call him to his house on the pretext of taking the mobile. Here Miller and his wife's plan had already been canceled, so Miller decides to go to Cairo's house to give him the phone. When he reaches outside Cairo's house, it starts raining. Cairo comes out wearing very thin clothes. Both of them see each other and kiss each other. After that, Miller returns to his house. Cairo sends him a mail. Here, Miller's wife tells him that I am not able to do my work properly because you were here. After this, Miller gets up from here and goes to a small room. Here, Miller prints and reads the story sent by Cairo. It is an adult story where, like Cairo and Miller, a student and teacher have an affair. In this story, the relationship between the two was discussed. While reading this story, Mr. Miller remembers everything that happened the previous night. Where both of them were very close, Miller gets very excited while reading Cairo's story. After this, he takes off his pants and enjoys the story. But the next day, everything changes. Miller does not call Cairo as he used to do earlier when Cairo comes to school. She asks Miller, "How did you like the story?" Miller says, "I did not like your story at all. There were many mistakes in this story." When Cairo says that this story was about us, then Miller clearly says that there is nothing like that between us. We are just student and teacher. Hearing this, Cairo's heart breaks. Miller says that you will have to write this story again. Otherwise, I will fail you in the midterm. Cairo gets very angry with Miller here. She says that my story is absolutely perfect. Cairo says that you are nervous only because I have written what you could not write. Cairo calls him a very common writer to humiliate him, and she says that if you have the courage, then you can throw me out right now. Later, she goes home crying and starts drinking with Vinny. On the other side, we see Mr. Miller, who is very tensed. Seeing this, his wife asks him what has happened. Miller tells her about the story written by Carr. Hearing this, his wife also gets excited. As soon as these people are about to do something, Fillmore comes here. Miller again gets tensed. On the other side, Cairo and Winnie are talking. Cairo tells Winnie that Miller was just pretending to be close to me. Cairo tells Winnie that you send a message to Mr. Fillmore so that he is distracted. Winnie talks very nicely to Fillmore here, but her words had no effect on Fillmore. After this, to attract Fillmore's attention, these people take off all their clothes and take romantic photos and send them to Fillmore. As soon as Fillmore sees these photos, he quickly leaves Miller's house. Then Miller's wife gets a call from the school. Now the whole school gets to know about Miller and Cairo's affair. It was revealed that his wife was shocked to hear this. She asked, "Why is this happening just because of a story written by a student?" She asked Miller if anything else had happened between the two of you, but Miller clearly denies. The next day, Cairo does not come to class. She is in the vice principal's office. The vice principal asks Cairo and Miller what is happening. Cairo tells everything to the vice principal that Miller had given me a midterm assignment in advance, and we smoked cigarettes together, and we also met outside the school. But when Miller's turn comes, he hesitates to answer the questions. Seeing his hesitation, the vice principal understands everything. So Miller is suspended from his job. Outside the school, Fillmore explains to Miller that you should have worked within limits, but you crossed your limits, due to which you are in this condition today. After this, Fillmore leaves from here. When Miller comes home and tells his wife that he has been expelled from the school, then his wife is upset with him. But she starts doubting him and asks him again, "Did anything happen between the two of you?" But Miller again denies it, but his wife was not ready to accept it. She again asks Miller, "Do you have no feelings for that girl?" A fight starts between them over this, and they both start counting each other's shortcomings. This fight gradually increases so much that his wife decides that she will divorce Miller. On the other hand, Winnie meets Cairo. She says that whatever you did, Miller lost his job, but it does not matter to Cairo. Cairo says that Miller underestimated me, and now he will know who I am. Cairo considered it his biggest victory by doing this with Miller. Cairo says that now neither Miller has a job nor his wife. Will he be able to write anything now? The movie ends at this point. Actually, Miller had disliked Cairo's story. At that very moment, Cairo decided to take revenge from Miller, and he was ready to go to any extent to take his revenge. He took his revenge from Miller by getting him fired from his job and divorcing his wife. The movie ends here with Cairo's revenge. If you enjoy, then don't forget to subscribe the channel.